Future real estate investors, what's going on today? Hope you're having a wonderful, wonderful day. I want to start out with a question. Would you rather be taxed on the seed or would you rather be taxed on the harvest? I heard this years ago whenever I was in the insurance business and actively writing insurance, life insurance and stuff like that. And I wish I could give credit to who said that. I can't remember where that came from. It might have been from tax-free retirement book. But anyway, needless to say, that basically is asking the question, would you rather, if you were going to plant this big field of crops and they're like, okay, you're going to have to pay taxes on what the seed is worth, or you're going to have to pay taxes on what the harvest is worth. Well, obviously the seed is worth a lot less. And so if you could pay taxes on that seed today and then not have to pay taxes anymore, then that would be better than if you had to end up paying taxes way, way, way down the road when it's this big harvest. And that alludes to different types of instruments that you can avoid having to pay taxes on in the long run. Today, for the purposes of using that sort of metaphor, I'm going to talk about two different types of IRAs and how you can use them to really build your wealth. So the first one is that seed, and that is a Roth IRA. Roth IRAs are not going to really affect anything today. Like, you're not going to get a tax break today because you're already going to paid tax on that money that you received. But then after the taxes have been paid, you have a certain amount you can put into a Roth IRA. And I want to stress this, I'm not a CPA, I'm not an attorney, I don't play one on TV or YouTube or anything like that. But this is all today just my experience, so take it with a grain of salt, okay? So like you don't end up having, once you've paid the taxes on that, and you're able to put a certain amount of money in a Roth IRA, depending on what your income is and that sort of thing. There's different ways you may have to go about doing it, backdoor and all that stuff I won't get into with this video. But now that the taxes have been paid, so you've paid the taxes on the seed. Now as that grows and becomes a big harvest, there's no more taxes that you have to pay on it. So that is a Roth IRA. And there is just a traditional IRA where you get tax breaks today. So I'm going to put $7,000 into this IRA. I'm going to get to eliminate $7,000 of my income that I don't have to pay taxes on because I'm putting it over here into this qualified IRA. But as that grows, eventually I'm going to have to pay taxes down the road at the harvest, so to speak. So there are pros and cons to both of those. Obviously, if you have a high income, you're having some big, heavy tax burden right now, that you're making a lot of money, and you don't have real estate or other things you can kind of offset that, then that traditional IRA is a great way to reduce your taxable liability. On the other hand, if you're able to have real estate investments and other things going on and you can put money into a Roth, now you've paid the taxes on it, now that can grow tax-free. Now here is where it's time to blow your mind. Boom. And that is a self-directed IRA or a self-directed Roth IRA. This is where magic happens, and I want to talk about that today in this video. So I need to get one set up. I don't have a self-directed Roth, but I have a traditional self-directed IRA. And I have done some very cool things in this. It has been very, very, very awesome what I've been able to do with this. So one of the things that I did early on, I bought a house. This house was a total gut rehab. It was in bad shape. And I went to look at the property. This is a few years ago. I went to look at the property, and immediately I was like, oh man, this is bad, dude. This is real bad. And I said, probably would not be a good fit for me. It's just I've got multiple projects going on, and I just don't think I have time to tackle this. And the owner said, look, I want to get rid of this. Like, it's an inherited property. I don't want it. I don't want to deal with it. Just make me an offer. So that is like textbook motivated, So I thought about it. I kind of was thinking about what it would cost to fix it up. And I was like, okay, you know what? I was like, I'll tell you what. I was like, I'll give you $11,000. And I was like, but based on this property is it's in bad shape. Like, that's the best I could do. And I totally expected her to say no, and she said, okay, we can do the deal. I was like, oh, okay. So on the spot, I had been thinking about, my IRA self-directed. I just set my self-directed IRA up, and I'm like, you know what? This would be a perfect property. I was like, okay. So I wrote the contract up in the name of my self-directed IRA. Now, money flows in and out of the IRA, and the IRA actually owns the property, that self-directed IRA. And there is a custodian who basically is like the intermediary company that manages, the paperwork and makes sure you're compliant and all those things. So I wrote the contract up. I remember I had to ask them, like, how do I structure this, what the deed is supposed to read and everything. So I did all that, and I bought this property for $11,000 in my self-directed IRA. Then it just sat for a while because I had multiple projects going on, multiple properties, and I was like, man, I got to figure this thing out. And so I said, you know what I think I'm going to do? I'm just going to try to see if I can't sell it. And so this would be a textbook kind of wholesale deal. So I ended up, I was like, I put it out there. I think at the time I put it on like Facebook Marketplace or something, and I had a ton of interest. But eventually someone came in and I threw it out, I think it was like 50 or 60,000. And, after some back and forth, landed at, it was 35,000, I think. I have to go back and look at the exact numbers, but it was about 35,000. And so I ended up making about $20,000. And so sold the property, and I thought to myself after this transaction and everything was over, all said and done with, I'm like, okay, I just made like $20,000 in a matter of months into my IRA. Like, how long would it have taken me to invest $11,000, which is what I put into that property, $11,000 plus some closing costs, so call it 12 grand. How much time would I have to have that money in the stock market to get a return like this? And so that was the first really cool thing that I did with my self-directed IRA, and I've done some deals since. Another thing that I did with my self-directed IRA was I found a property that, I ended up buying this property. I think it was $24,000. And again, same situation. It was, it wasn't in the best of shape, but it really wasn't bad. It's a brick property and needed some work. It had some termite issues going on with it, but really the inside wasn't that bad. It was kind of rural. And so I'm like, okay, so I bought that property. I used the money in the IRA to buy it. I used the money in the IRA to pay the contractors to go out and fix it and make repairs, and then I leased the property out. That property today gets $950 a month. So $24,000, I can't remember exactly what I had to put into the repairs, but that might have been like, let's say it was like 15,000 or something like that when it's all said and done with. And so I had the 20, I was like 21. I think when it was all said and done with, I was about 40,000 all in with my purchase, with the renovation, with some of the closing costs, everything. So about 40,000 in, and I'm getting $950 a month now for that property in the rent. So again, that's a situation to where I own a house in my IRA, self-directed IRA, getting $950 a month. So it's like, how in the world could I put money like that into like a stock or mutual fund and get that kind of return? And so that's the way I've used my self-directed IRA for a while. I was just doing that. Then I started actually loaning money out of my self-directed IRA, and this has become one of my favorite things to do with my self-directed IRA is to loan money to other investors. So now I loan money out and I end up getting a set rate of return. I have one particular investor, a buddy of mine, shout out if he's watching, he knows who he is. I loaned him money on his flips, and basically I don't have him pay me monthly payments because again, it's not like I'm have access to the money. This is long-term stuff. So I was like, hey, you don't have to pay me monthly, just pay me at the end of the project. And so I get a very, very good rate of return on that. And he pays me back, it goes back into my self-directed IRA, and then of course I'm like, okay, let me know when you got your next deal, let's do another deal. And so now I'm lending money out of that, making a really strong return on that. Yes, I could make more money if I used it to maybe buy these lower end houses and flipping them and that sort of stuff occasionally, but I think it's nice to be able to kind of have it really passive with the loaning it out. Now, what I'm looking at doing is setting up a self-directed Roth IRA, and that would be great because I would have to unfortunately pay the taxes on that money in the Roth, and I've already started putting some money into the Roth. I have to do it kind of creatively with backdoor financing and everything because of my income and all that, but I basically now am starting to accumulate money in my Roth IRA that I'm going to eventually convert into the self-directed. I shouldn't say convert, it's actually transition over to the self-directed Roth IRA. And then that will be great because any money I make on that, I've already paid the taxes on. I won't have to pay taxes down the road on the harvest, so to speak. Like I said, seed or harvest. So I'll be able to utilize that self-directed Roth IRA to really accelerate, build wealth with my self-directed Roth. And then, eventually it'll be so much in there that when I start pulling money out, I won't have to pay the taxes on that. So that is a really cool strategy. It's something that you can check into and see if it makes sense. The biggest thing I'll say is just there's rules and compliance, things you can do, things you can't do. And so always make sure you have a qualified person that assists you if you're setting that up and you're having transactions that you're making. I've got a great company. I'm not affiliated with them or anything. I can recommend. So I'll put that in the description below. And if you want to check out and learn more about how you can structure and set up those self-directed IRAs, I'll put that in the description below for you guys and gals. But as always, thanks for watching. Be sure, if you haven't, subscribe to our channel, turn on notifications, and if you're not aware, we have an awesome community. It's a private community where you can get mentorship, you can talk to other members. Check it out, it's very inexpensive. I will put that in the description below as well if you are really looking to take your real estate investing to the next level. All right, as always, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate every one of y'all. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.